Hi, my name is Liz Bowen. I am a realtor and the owner of Red Bow Realty here in beautiful Colorado Springs. And what I want to talk to you about today is an answer to a question I get frequently, which is, Liz, how long should a listing agreement actually be? So a listing agreement, which in the state of Colorado is called an exclusive right to sell listing agreement, is basically an employment contract between a seller and a realtor or a licensee. And in it, we talk about what kinds of relationships we should have, whether that be an agency relationship or a transaction broker, and many other things. One really important thing, of course, being the beginning date of this relationship and the ending date. Now, a seller might be concerned that they'd be signing an exclusive right to sell listing agreement for too long, right? Because this does establish the length of the relationship between the two parties. And of course, what's important here, most of all, is how long does it actually take for houses in your neighborhood or your area of town to sell? That should be one of the primary concerns when we look at the length of time for a listing agreement. So if houses are flying off the shelf based on your location, based on your price range, let's imagine that houses are getting under contract on average in as little as 5 days. All right, well, that's great to know. But in addition to how long it takes to get under contract, I want you to remember or think about the fact that once you get under contract, it's still going to take another 30 to 45 days for you to close. And so the listing agreement needs to cover that entire time span. So if we were in that kind of a market for you and you and I were putting together a listing agreement, I would recommend a good 2, maybe 3 months on a listing agreement. That should cover us on a lot of contingencies, right? Even if we have quick days on market, there still maybe some bumps in the road when it comes to getting you from contract to the finish line, right? Which is the closing table. So I would say in a 5 days under contract kind of environment, 2.5, 3 months is still very appropriate. Now, let's say you're in a price range or a location where houses are taking a little bit longer to get under contract. You know, right now in Colorado Springs, we're in a really tough seller's market, which means that houses are in a certain price range and location, and of course based on condition, really going under contract quickly. Like put them on the market on Friday and they're under contract by the end of the weekend. But if that's not the case, because of where you are in Colorado or your price range, because I'll tell you quite honestly, the same isn't necessarily true if we're looking at a $550,000, $750,000 home. Those homes are taking longer to sell just because there aren't as many buyers in a pool who can afford that kind of house. Okay, so in those situations where maybe it's taking, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even a month to get under contract, you would just take that time and then add it to roughly 45 days to make sure that the length of the contract is going to accommodate the entire time that you guys will be working together. Okay, so in general, I think that 3 months is very appropriate. But if it's a higher end property in a higher price range, I might actually request 4 months, 5 months, just to make sure that we don't have to constantly be chasing this termination deadline and extending it as time goes by. It's just easier that way. Now, I will also tell you that in my listing contracts, I have a cancellation clause that I will add, and that usually sets my sellers at ease. And they know that as long as that we're not under contract with a buyer, that if they chose to cancel this contract, I would release them from the contract. And the reason that that works for me is because the last thing that I want in a relationship with a seller that isn't working out right for either the seller or for me is to feel this prolonged requirement to continue to work together when we're both not happy with what's happening here. It's hopefully better for me that I release you from the contract, and if anyone ever asked you, hey, how was working with Liz, then you could say, well, it didn't work out for us, but She released me from the contract, canceled the contract, and I would recommend her to my friends. I thought that was a stand-up thing for her to do. All right, so that being said, the last thing I would encourage you to consider is that just because we sign a listing agreement today doesn't mean that you're necessarily ready to put your house in the MLS, the multiple listing service, and for me to start marketing your house. So we might need to have a longer listing agreement time period because there's stuff that you want to take care of. I'm not going to put off getting the listing agreement signed, but I want to take into consideration how much time you're going to need on the front end, and then marketing time, and then under contract getting you to closing time. So things that might impact how long it takes for us to get from contract to marketing time could be repairs that you want to make. Maybe you are waiting on contractors to get back in touch with you, and there's contractors whose schedules are booked and it's going to take a while. Maybe you've decided to hire a professional stager and it's going to take a while for that stager to come out to your house, give you advice, maybe stage the property for you, okay? Other things, maybe I am going to hire a professional photographer to come out and take pictures, and so we're kind of at the mercy of the photographer's schedule. There's just a myriad of things that might keep us from being able to immediately market your home for sale, and that of course should impact the length of time for the listing contract. I hope that this video has answered your questions on what is an appropriate length of time for my listing agreement. My name is Liz Bowen, and again, what's important to you is important to me.